Hello. Right, welcome to the behind the scenes video. You catch us in disorganised form. We were in LA at NAMM. I had a room and Mick was thinking about coming over. Didn't have anywhere to stay. I'd just finished on Guitarist magazine. I'd had enough of that, quit my job. Didn't really know what I was going to do, but had some plans to maybe work in the industry a bit. Dan and I were mates. And I was thinking about doing some video stuff, but I had no idea what to do. So Mick came over and we were planning on talking about what videos to shoot. And we would spend 30 seconds talking about what videos to shoot and then just descend into pedal chaos. And then Mick said, this is what we do. We had no idea if it would work. We had no idea if anyone would like it. We had no idea that we would even make a t-shirt, let alone sell a load. And we had no idea that, you know, the engagement would be what it is, which is beyond all our expectations. So, yeah. I think originally when we were talking about it, one of the things that was a real bugbear of mine was forums. But the biggest one for me, this is what a pedal sounds like. Yeah, because a pedal has no sound, as you always say. Pedal has no sound, the amp has no sound, the guitar has no sound until it becomes, you know, part of what you're doing. As time went on and we covered a lot of these concepts, and then we started looking at the new pedals that were coming out, and it is really just what we're into at the time. And it's a voyage of discovery. Yeah. And I guess you've been through a lot of this stuff, but what was really mind-blowing for me was, having left doing guitar magazines for 20 years, I just felt like I got to the point where I wasn't discovering anything more, because I spent more time cutting budgets, dealing with the reality of making a print product for a corporation, trying to make them as much profit as humanly possible, that all the questions that I could ask as a journalist and as someone who's interested in playing a guitar had been asked. Right. And I had no more time to do that. The second we started doing this, I started learning stuff super fast again. So how do we choose stuff? We go, first of all, what Dan was galloping towards earlier there are no answers. Exactly. We've said that right from the beginning. There are no answers, only better questions. You know, the ideas for shows, you know, they keep coming. We've got lists of ideas that we can do, but then we also have artists that we love. If we can get someone on, I hope we can do a lot more of that. And then more recently, we've also been talking to manufacturers. Yeah. So we had Tor from TC Electronic in this week. We hope to go. That was awesome. We hope to go and visit manufacturers. Just to ask those questions, just to find out all the stuff we sort of know this much, but we want to know this much. Yeah. Starts about 6 a.m. for me. Simon does all the camera work, production, editing, all of that. We live fairly close together, so we will meet, head over in the car, and we try and get going for 9:30, 10 o'clock. Good morning. Can I have 2 flat whites and 1 decaf soya latte? Medium? Thank you. And your initial is in the decaf soya latte? No, thanks. If you could put a bit of dignity in there, that would be good. I will get here quite early and start setting up the pedal board. If I need more pedals, I will have generally driven down to Anderton's to grab them. We'll have the first board done, but we try and shoot 3. I think the best we've ever done is 4 videos in one day. Yeah, the hope was that we would shoot 4 videos in a day. Actually, when you factor in all the messing about, all the things that might go wrong, we had some lovely smoke coming out the back of a Marshall today. It was awesome. It was a woody, like a really lovely woody smoky woody burny smell. It was brilliant, as opposed to the normal Transformer burny smell. Yeah. So it's kind of, I was relieved.
I was so relieved. I was like, yeah, barbecue. This is nice.
And then other things, other things might happen. We might go off on a tangent. We might take ages deciding which amps we're going to use. Anyway, so we get film. Usually we start film about 11 o'clock, 11:30, something like that. This is like acting for continuity. So you may know this man. Daniel is putting the pedalboard together for the show we're about to film.
So this is what I do before each show. Once we know what we're going to put on the board, I will work out what board we need. Most of the time we need G to switch everything in and out. The reason that we use the switcher is so that you hear everything in isolation. If we had all the pedals just plugged one into the other, the load of pedals can actually have a bearing on how each one sounds. So when you hear the pedals on that pedal show, you're hearing them in isolation, which is the best way to hear them. If we do 3 or 4 shows and we film in a day, generally 3, 4's a very long day, but I'll tear the whole board down and then build it up 3 times in a day. It's a lot of fun.
For anyone who's interested in shooting video, we have light LED panels up there. They shoot through these diffuser screens to make the light softer. There's 2 to either side of where we sit. And in addition, this week we've just added some above our heads to light the back of the shot a little bit more so that you can see what's going on in terms of the, the rest of the room. In terms of cameras, Simon, who's holding the camera, he does all the filming and produces that pedal show. He has a camera about here, and that's the camera that you see following Dan and I around. And then right back in the corner of the room there is the main camera. And it has that thing on the top because we need to know which one we're looking at, which Dan and I often get wrong. Don't we, Simon? We're about 15 minutes on, 20 minutes on from where we were before. Dan, in that short space of time, has managed to put together a pedal board, which is kind of zen-like and broadly presentable up top and very unkempt down below.
Hello!
Thank you very much. This is where the board lives relative to where we sit. So, for example, I sit here, I have a cable ready, and the board is kind of there. So you only ever see it from this GoPro camera that's suspended above, and you only ever see it from that angle. For all the people that ask, why don't you use your feet to change the switches, it's because it's an ergonomic thing. You have to bend down a long way to change knobs and stuff, so it's easier just to do it with our hands while we're sat there. So what Dan will then do is just go through the loops to make sure that we know.
I'll annoy him. What I'll do is for the next 20 minutes I'll just annoy him.
Yeah, I've already had one little OCD freak out today, so it was all about a stand. It just wouldn't work. So he'll go through G2, make sure everything's in the loops so that we know that what's in what loops, so that it makes the edit slightly easier for Simon to stop us from going, oh my god, what's in that loop? I don't know. While he's doing that, I'll just explain about the signal routing in terms of the audio and how that works. Whenever there's a guitar amp or a guitar cab involved, we use Sennheiser E906. Why? Because I had them, they're a flat profile so they don't take up too much room and you don't keep tripping over them. And I find them to be a bit more consistent, less fussy than a 57 in terms of positioning and all of that. Did they sound any better? I don't know, don't really care. The point with microphones is you know the mic. When Dan and I are sat on stools, we're sat about here. And if Simon just pans up, this is the microphone that captures our voices. In addition to that, if you follow this microphone up and then come up here, we quite often say that we have an XY mic in the room, and that is it. Our signal ends up here at the Zoom F8. Now, for so long on that pedal show, every single tiny bit of audio recorded for that pedal show ever was recorded on this Zoom H6. It has 4 XLR ins, two on that side, two on that side, and it also has this stereo XY mic on the top there, and we would position that just kind of down here. That would have been on a mic stand about there in relation to the rest of the room. Still use this all the time for anything I'm ever doing on location. Tomorrow we're going to, Simon and I are going to go and record some stuff for Victory Amps. It'll all be done on that. So just
awesome.
Seriously can't recommend that highly enough as a product that's just sat there week in, week out for 2 years and done a fantastic job. We have moved, however, to this, which is with the F8, which is a little bit more at market. The mic preamps are a little bit better. One of the issues we had on the H6 is when you hit it with a loud guitar signal, the preamps can clip even though it's not showing that it's clipping on the meter, and so you have to pad it by minus 20 dB, and that solves the problem completely. These pre's are a bit more sophisticated, but it's essentially doing exactly the same job. Multi-track recording. So in goes this mic, the voice mic, in goes the amps mics, in goes the stereo XY, and they all get recorded as a multi-track file, and then they get pulled off of the SD card that comes out of there. They get loaded into Logic, which is because that's the audio program that I use, and by means of magic editing you can see how that works now. Did we just do a finger snap? I think we did. Right, hello, Mick here. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to start the audio recorder for what's coming out of the computer, and I'm also going to start a screen capture. Go. Click to record the full screen. Happy days. At about, I guess, 6:30, 7:15, we'd finished packing up. Simon and I loaded the car and drove to Essex to film some Victory amplifier demos on Thursday and Friday. Dan got on a plane and went to Frankfurt to give Josh Smith his new pedal board.
It's the genre, I think.
All of which sounds terribly glamorous, but it's not actually, because, you know, that's Wednesday night out, Thursday night out, Friday night back at what time did I get back last night? About 11 PM probably. It's Saturday, it's really sunny, it's a beautiful day outside, and I'm just going to quickly whip through the process of doing the audio once we've got it out of the room. I've got everything off the Zoom little F8 thing. That comes off on a little memory card, an SD card. Pull the files off, and this is Logic. Now you can use anybody out there who does audio processing or has recorded stuff with their band or whatever will know all about programs like this. These blue bars here, that's the vocal track, that's one of the guitar amps, that's the other guitar amp. These are the left and right room mics. So I'm just going to have a quick listen to the vocal track. I monitor in headphones. I figure that that's the way the majority of people are going to be listening to this. Also, you know, this is my house. I don't have a loud monitoring setup. So I mix everything in headphones, Sennheiser, whatever they are, HD25s. I kind of, you know, I know what these headphones sound like. I know how this machine works. I know it all works. I'm familiar with it, and therefore that enables us to have a level of consistency once you guys get to watch the video. So let's see what we're listening to. Yeah, and hopefully the title of the video will end up being something. So I can see on the audio meters here, I'm looking at the audio meter for track 1, and I can see that that's pretty low. Yeah, and hopefully the title of the video will end up being something like... That's really low, so I'm going to need to gain that up. So what I'll do is I'll add... that's kind of what it is. Yeah. And whether that's because you don't like... A gain makeup plugin here. We record low. Modern digital recorders enable you to do that, and you can just push the gain in post to save the clipping in the in the machine itself. One plugin that I always use for the voices is something called Revox, which is made by Waves. I use quite a few Waves plugins. Again, not because they're the best, but just because, you know, that's what I choose. So this is a plugin that you can use on that vocal mic that sits above our heads. Sounds like this. For example, when the broadcast came along, it's the best pedal in the world, and it really piqued my interest. So maybe you can help me and the good people of YouTube through a little journey of these pedals. Okay. Where should we begin?
Let's begin with the JHS color box. So that was.
So I'm kind of happy with that. I've used a combination of the Revox plugin and some gain makeup to get to a level that I'm happy with. A lot of people have commented on our videos, don't really understand why. Let's say we stop playing and there's kind of a big reverb tail, and then all of a sudden the reverb gets really loud and comes up, and the hum and everything in the room comes up really loud. What's happening is the amps tail off, the reverb tails off, and as it tails off, the vocal mic level is brought up. This is what you would hear if we did not mute that vocal mic. So we're talking.
If we set the attack to off,
which is essentially the gain, is it?
which is essentially the gain, yeah.
Yep.
And then so this is without it on. If you play it.
So that was interesting for a number of reasons. What you heard there was I left the vocal mic up, and then it was obviously distorting on the screen there, and the audio meters were showing more than plus 4 dB. It was peaked completely off. I then muted that and had a listen to the other mics. So essentially we were then hearing the 2 mics on the 2 amplifiers, and also the left-right mics in the room. I think my wife's just got home. What I immediately heard was it sounded really thin and pretty rubbish. And what I discovered there was that one of the guitar amp mics was out of phase. So, flip the phase. That is potentially confusing, because did it sound out of phase in the room? Nope, it didn't at all. It sounded absolutely fine where we were sat. It might be that one of the plugins that I've got on here has the phase reversed. Or indeed it was out of phase with the room mic. My wife's just got home and is coming up the stairs, so I shall pause. Ooh. So I just had a quick flick through, an initial listen through, just to see what the microphone's hearing. Now we don't radically EQ anything. The only EQ treatment I'll ever do is just to, you know, when you stick a microphone on a speaker, it might be that you're a little bit closer to the cone or further away from it, and it might need a little bit of extra presence or a bit less, or something about the mid-range sounds a bit woofy, or there's a resonant frequency that's just not very nice. Equally, when you're using 2 amps together, sometimes you need to just roll off a little bass. And that's not too... everything there is a stylistic and a judgment call. It's not the right way to do it. It's just... you're making creative and stylistic decisions all the way through that process. However, our whole point of doing the audio in this way, is to try and get the resultant sound as close as possible, which is, you're fighting a losing battle right from the start, but as close as possible to what we hear in the room. Any single guitar sound you've ever heard will sound very different should you be stood next to the amp in the room compared to the recording, even if it was a very sensitively recorded thing. I've just had a listen to the Marshall, done a couple basic tweaks here and there. I use a plugin called Kramer HLS, which has just got a really nice EQ. It's got EQ exactly where I want it. Doesn't radically change the sound. Here you go, I'll demonstrate that. Here's the Marshall with and without it, basically. So it's not radically changing the sound, it's just giving me a bit of extra presence. I always find I need a little bit more presence than I think you need. And it all really changes when you add the second amp in. So here we go, I'll play the Marshall and then I'll add the J in. the room mics. So what I'll do is I'll show you how that works. That's what the room mics are hearing, so obviously much further away, a bit more space in the sound, and that just gives the whole thing a bit more realism. It's not huge, it's not a massive change in the sound, but it just does add, yeah, it's just adding a little bit more of the reality of the room. And that's kind of it really. Not a huge amount of processing, just some EQ tweaks to get the amps to sit together. And as I said, that's a whistle stop tour. I'll probably spend a little bit longer just having a closer listen to that. Once I've balanced up the levels, all these 4 tracks get bounced out as the guitar track. This one gets bounced out as the vocal track, and that comes out as 2 tracks that are exactly the same length. So there you go, whistle stop tour of what happens to the audio once it's gone down the microphones. Back to the studio. There's only one thing to add, and that is until, what is it now, July 2017, we've been using, every show you've heard on that pedal show uses, up until about 10 weeks ago, used a Zoom H6, little handy recorder thing. 10 weeks ago we switched to the Zoom F8, which is a little bit more fully featured, and we just made a kind of difficult decision to switch to a computer-based recording system, which is going to run Universal Audio stuff. And funnily enough, those guys came in yesterday, helped us do some filming and some, or at least some sound production, and we listened to the audio and we were very impressed with it.
Yeah, amazing.
Not that the Zoom stuff is bad in any way, just
Zoom
that
stuff's amazing.
It really is, and every single pedal show we've done to date has been done on that gear, pretty much. So there's nothing bad about it, but we need extra functionality. It has other benefits in terms of the way it records with the computer and everything. Well, here we are again, Mick here again, and this is Simon.
Hello.
For the longest time on that pedal show, certainly from when we first started, I was doing all the editing. We also got some help from a good friend of ours, Mitch, for a little while. But there comes a point, which is kind of interesting really, if you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel or anything like that. There comes a point where doing it yourself is no longer a valid option, because it does things like stops you from working and and having any sort of meaningful personal life, or indeed playing the guitar, which is a shame because I blooming love video editing, but I'm not very good at it, and Simon is, and he's a professional, which is why Simon now does it, because it's what he does for a job. So Simon is cool for a number of reasons. One, he's got this awesome edit studio. Second, he's got a 1963 Martin.
It's just been teaching me that Robbie McIntosh lick.
0028, 0018. It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it's just the right amount battered, but it looks cool and it's not crazy expensive.
It's awesome. And so there's 2 reasons Simon is cool. He's professional. He's got a 63 0018, and the third reason there in that corner is a Marshall 4x12. So when we met for the first time, I was like, yeah, you've got the job, no problem.
Although it is set up as a bookcase in a very kind of middle-aged, wish I could be more rock and roll way.
Don't tell everyone. Right, so I'm now holding the camera. Check this out. Ooh.
This is Adobe Premiere for anyone who's kind of interested in what we use to edit. I bring in all the media from our 2 main cameras and the GoPro camera, and then Mick gives me the audio. So he's just given me 2 WAV files, which are the guitars and the voices separately, because obviously they're set at quite different gain levels. So in the edit is where we fade between one and the other. So I've just made a sequence here on screen which has are 3 cameras, and then I can grab the audio that Mick's just given me and sync that up on the same timeline so that I can get rid of all the audio from the cameras and just use the stuff that's coming through the microphones.
So I have a question at this point. Why can't we just use the audio from the camera? Because how much are these cameras?
They're about £4,000 each, say.
And you don't get a lens for that, do you?
No.
How much is a lens?
£1,000.
Yeah,
Good one.
So we're into £5,000 worth of camera-ish.
Yeah.
And we still can't use the audio.
Well, you could use the audio, but we're better than that, Mick. The camera does have XLR inputs, and it's got a mic. The preamps are okay; they're fine for dialogue. But with what we're trying to do, the audio is really important, and so it's important to use decent preamps, get the mics nice and close to where we need them. So we've got the top mic, as you've seen from the other footage, close to the guys chatting, the mics on the cabs, and all of that going into a multi-channel recorder that's got better preamps, and we can get all the mix sorted from there. It's a little bit more fiddly, but the results are loads better. So now it's really just a question of zooming in, find the first bit of playing. That's going to be our style, and I have to keep cutting between one channel of audio and another so that we come from the playing here to the vocal mic. So I'll do a pass just kind of between each camera like you would vision mix in a TV studio, just to get a rough cut out any bits that go wrong or guitar's gone out of tune or whatever it is, just get it as succinct as possible. And then there'll be a whole second pass to go through masking all the pedals on the pedal board, getting all the titles in, and then doing our final grades, logos, top and tail, all that kind of stuff.
So there we go. Didn't get into as much detail with this as we did on the audio process because frankly it's phenomenally complicated. How long does it take to edit a show?
If it's kind of 45 minutes, it will probably take about 4.5, 5 hours for one show. If it's a bit more than an hour, it can take up kind of 5, 6, something like that.
Which makes me feel slightly better because when I was doing it, I was getting depressed because it was taking me 8 or 9 hours. So I don't feel too bad about that.
I can almost do 2 a day.
Yeah.
If I get up there and have my Weetabix.
There's no way I can. So yeah, as you can see, thank you Simon for allowing us into your edit suite.
Very welcome.
And long may it continue.
Yes, I have a company called The Gig Rig. We always find time to do this because we love it. Also because I am spared from the other things like the audio and the editing. So, once the day is done here, apart from when we get together and talk about the shows and what we want to do, I have my Gig Rig hat on. Mick's wife, Katherine, has been amazingly helpful at us getting the stuff together to turn this into...
So my wife Katherine set the shop up, for example, where you can buy t-shirts and stuff like that. She's been really instrumental in helping us turn this geeking off about pedals into something that can actually function. Before we did this, I had a full-time job editing magazines and running magazines. I left that and I became a freelancer, so I wrote a little bit, I made video for people. And that's pretty much what I still do.
Yeah.
So I do not commercial, I guess, work for other people based in and around the guitar industry. So that's how I actually live day to day. And I'm very lucky in that now that pedal show does earn a little bit of money from t-shirt sales and merch sales and retailer money and all of that, it can pay me some money to do work for that pedal show as well. So
oh man, there's so much. The band thing, one thing that we did, we've done That Pedal Show live event, which was absolutely one of the highlights of my playing career.
It was kind of interesting, wasn't it? Because we thought, well, what people really would want is to see a great band, have a nice evening, blah, blah, blah. And people loved it. People absolutely loved it. Joey is totally amazing. Feedback we got was...
Why didn't you talk about pedals
It was
more?
great. Why didn't you talk about pedals more? Which, seems kind of completely obvious, but we thought with Joey there, they just want to listen to him. Events in the future, I think, will probably be more about an immersive experience for the people who come.
Yeah.
So...
That's going to be ace.
Yeah.
Doing some... And moving some of that context into with the videos would be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you know, make no bones about it. We would like a little building somewhere that houses TPS.
Mm-hmm.
That's our world.
Mm-hmm.
That we can spend most of our lives there doing it. Could be anything, couldn't it? Could be clinics, could be events, could be all kinds of things.
When you're in an environment with like-minded people, because when we're doing this, it's just you and me, and we're so into it. But when you're with a community of guys who are so into it as well, it's fascinating because we're all learning from each other.
Yeah.
Because everyone, you know, everyone's coming from it from their own experiences and stuff. And so, yeah, doing some more live events, that's going to be great.
Contact stuff with bands.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't know about you, but the reason, this is a recurring theme in this, but every day we do this, I learn something new, my interest goes higher, and I just want to come back the next time and do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
So as long as that remains the thing, happy days.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to do. The thing that I love most is when you read a comment in the YouTube section and it goes, "Oh my God, I've been playing for 20 years and I wish you guys had been around."
Yeah.
Which
that
again,
is
might sound a bit ego-y, but it's not about us at that point. It's about the fact that that person has genuinely found something inspiring and useful.
Which is the whole point of everything that we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that happens frequently.
Yeah.
Which means when I stop seeing that comment, we need to look at what we're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Highlight for me, turning up, getting to hang out with you and Simon has been, but that is, the thing is, but it's become, it's become this thing.
Pretty cool.
That I'm, you know, I do get so excited the shoot days because I'm proud of what we've done.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, you know, it's like being in a really great band.
Yeah.
When it's everyone's firing on all cylinders.
That's so interesting you say that. It's been a while since I've been in a band that's functioned well.
Right.
And you know when you're in that situation, it's the best feeling. And it's been a while for me since that's happened.
Yeah.
No fault of anybody's, just, you know, life and getting older and the reality of the gigs it's seen and everything. That's so interesting you describe this as a band, because that's exactly what it is. And we do gigs on Friday and 50,000 people watch.
Yes!
How mad is that?
It's awesome.